Hi everybody, Ross and my Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well. If you use the channel, please consider subscribing and hit that bell notification icon so you're made aware of any time I put new content on. If you're new to the channel, we basically put videos daily, but sometimes 2-3 times a day, and I wouldn't want you to miss any videos, any content, any memories. So please make sure you hit that bell notification icon. We've got some great guests coming up, great players, ex-players, and great fans, including today, lifelong Hammer. It's Liam. Hi, Liam. How are you doing, man?
Hi, Ross. Good, thanks.
How's yeah, not bad. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking. How is lockdown treating you?
Not too bad. I've been working throughout it as a key worker, so I've not been too bored. And just had a week off with the virus, so everything seems back to normal now anyway. So
I know it's not an accolade, but you're probably our first person with the virus who's on the show. So there you go.
Not sure I'm proud of that one. I'm not.
A little bit. But obviously, everything's back, and things are starting to seem to be sorting themselves out a little bit. So and West Ham continue to be West Ham, don't they? Crap 1 minute, then turn up another minute, and then let us down again, and then but it's a joy being a West Ham fan, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's good to be here, sat here now after the two last performances, which a week ago would have been wouldn't have been quite so smiley, I don't think, but it's given us a lot of hope the last couple of games.
It has. As I said, as I said the other day, if you said we'd take 4 points out of the last 2 games, would have bitten your hand off this time last
Definitely,
week.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's happened, isn't it? It could have been. It should have been 6 points, but hey ho, he's the West Ham. We got Burnley coming up, and so I reckon 2 more wins and we're all right. And I think
I'm intrigued how you find the difference in atmosphere to the 2 so far, and then whether you'll find it different on Wednesday. You've had the evening game, which might be in a different atmosphere, a bigger club, Chelsea.
Yeah,
the positivity around the place,
it's a weird. I mean, to be honest, I don't see anyone. It's really weird, apart from obviously the people I directly work with. You sort of, slightly more when everyone was there. You could see a few more people. But yeah, it was a bit weird. I think no one really knew about sort of production, because obviously we were doing like a full production, like we're almost like 60,000 fans in there, and we kept on saying, "What we need to put this video in. Why do we put it? There's no bugger here," and I think sort of it's sort of tailed off a bit, so we're a bit more sort of clued up. But it is weird. I mean, to be honest, I'm in a sort of in essence this sort of soundproof box at the top of the stadium, so I never really see much of the atmosphere. I could feel, you can feel it vibrating on the floor when the fans are singing. It is weird. It's weird that you can look out and, sometimes I step out and sort of sit on the step and watch the game outside, which is quite nice. And it's very bizarre. But to be honest, it could be it for the next, obviously the rest of this season, and who knows how long into next season.
Next year.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? At least there's something different to moan about, rather than the pubs not being open. The pubs are open, and West Ham are still playing. So it's something for fans to moan about and stuff. But it takes your mind away from what's been happening over the last few months. That's for sure. But it is what it is, and for West Ham and for football in general, it seems they just literally pressed the pause button and 100 days unpaused it and everything stayed the same, so nothing's changed really much with West Ham. We keep getting people injured. VAR keeps on buggering us about.
Don't mention that.
No, exactly. So it's a banned word on this channel. But it is what it is. It's weird. I mean, we have to do a few extra things. We play goal. We have to play goal music, which I've never done for over 20 seasons out at West Ham. So they play, the Premier League wants to play goal music to make it a little bit more of an event, so to speak, which I understand, particularly for the players more than anything, because you score a goal and there's no reaction, is there? It's like, so what? So ironically, the first time we played the goal music was obviously Souček's disallowed goal against Chelsea. So it started off well. But anyway, so for you, Liam, the first question I ask all fans we have on the channel is why West Ham? why is it your club? Because I'm not detecting like a Cockney twang in your accent or anything.
No, I'm afraid it's long gone. I'm afraid. I was born at Upney Hospital in Barking, and then we lived in Romford, and then we moved out to Canvey, and then we made the long trip 200 miles north when I was still at the end of infant school, to be honest.
Oh wow!
But we still got family. All my family's from Essex or East London, and we still got plenty of connections down there. So, and it was my uncle that took us to our first game.
Yeah.
And then I was hooked from then on. So it was always West Ham was our family's club.
Yeah.
And then, if anything, the continuation of supporting West Ham has been like a connection with my roots, basically. That's as much as anything. Yeah.
No, I understand that. For a lot of people, it tends to be, which is quite nice, tends to be sort of geographical. So as you said, you were born up in the Romford. I mean, I live in Hornchurch, so I know that area very well. And so, but obviously going up, 200 miles, it must have been hard being a West Ham fan in an area where there probably wasn't many West Ham fans. That was probably fair to say.
That's true. Yeah, it was where I live now. It's mostly, I dare say, Leeds fans, which I say that through grinded teeth. And then there's also Barnsley and Huddersfield. Actually, where I live, it's probably as the crow flies, Barnsley's the nearest team.
Sure.
But it's a kind of mixture of those three teams, basically.
Yeah. No, I always have
regular glory boys.
Yes, exactly. I always have not a soft spot for Leeds, but I always follow because when I was at uni, my anyway, that's a quick end to the interview. No, I tell you why, I'm not a soft spot, but I always look out for their results. In that, when I was at university, my housemates, one was a big Sheffield Wednesday fan, so that was really good because obviously they at Sheffield United, same as we do, so that's all right. But the other one was Don Revie's grandson. So we used to go to watch a lot of the Leeds games and stuff. So I don't sort of say, how have Leeds, they've won, but I always sort of when you look down the set, Leeds, not really sort of having association, but like in Orient really, I always see how the O's do. Go, well, that's good. Very soft. So obviously since then, Liam, what would you say? Obviously, it's been a while since you've been supporting West Ham in terms of your fan career. What were your sort of highlights? What sort of things which stick out in your mind as being real sort of really maybe good or bad highlights? Doesn't really matter, but in your sort of fan career so far, because obviously we're going to have loads more. We're going to have we're going to have Premier League wins and FA Cup wins coming up in the next sort of 10 years or so. But obviously until
then. Highlights of games where I've been at is things like the playoff final against Ipswich.
Yeah.
It's a game that many people talk about, where the atmosphere that night was just unbelievable. When people talk about the roof coming off, it did really feel like the roof was going to come off with the vibration around the ground and everything when the goals went in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nights like that. But a typical of West Ham is Villa Park in the FA Cup semi-final, where how many fans can say a game where they've lost a semi-final 4-0? Can say it'd be one of your favourite memories. It was just the atmosphere on the day, the way we kept singing all that time. It's just special. Which those are the things you remember.
Yeah.
And whenever other fans of other teams remember big wins or giant killing wins or whatever, and ours is a 4-0 defeat. It's crazy. Or even like the 6-0 defeat at Oldham that night. There's all sorts of things going on. The humour and the antics of the fans and that. It's just stuff you just don't forget.
Yeah, exactly. Losing that game and then them chanting for the rest of it. I interviewed Tony Gale and that's something he said. He's like just couldn't put his head around it, to be honest. It's like, and then sort of the fans getting on the pitch and stuff, and we just lost 4-0. But it is the West Ham way, isn't it? We talk about the West Ham way, but that is the West Ham way. As I said to many people, we're not in it for the football. Too bloody, we're going to back the wrong horse there. But it is about, as you said, that the experience, the fans, and obviously probably even more so of you, keeping in touch with fans and stuff, even more so now. Obviously the Facebook groups and Twitters and things like that. I think I'm slightly biased, but I think we do it a lot better than other clubs, if that makes sense. Supporters, it seems, it does seem this sort of unity, even more so in the lockdown period, I'd say. And you know, and that's how this channel sort of has developed, really, for that exact reason. You know, people have suggested, you know, people have recommended, you know, getting you on and various others, and it's all about the sort of the West Ham community, and I think this channel's really sort of exemplified that, really, because it is about, you know, I might have asked half a dozen people, and those six as well, so other six, and it's just snowballed, but it's really good fun. So in terms of your Hammers 11, Liam, now, as I said, we try and do Hammers 11. The only rules are you have to be alive to have seen them play, not necessarily seen them play live, because that obviously, for people, particularly sort of the foreign Hammers as well, you know, they get to see a lot of live games, but you have to be alive to have seen them play. We try and keep it to a 4-4-2, but I'm getting soft at my old age, so if things change around, I've got a few templates now, so I'm not so fussy about 4-4-2. And it's your 11, so you can talk about whoever you want, whatever context. It's the people that meant something to you, positive or negative. We've had a few negative ones as well, but it's up to you, Liam. So that's sort of the criteria. So in terms of the Liam 11, who would be between the sticks?
There's only two real candidates, and that would either be Ludo or Phil Parkes.
Yeah.
I've gone for Phil Parkes just because he was there the first game. He wasn't actually the first game I went to see, but he was in the earlier games when I first started to go regular. And as I said, all my family is from like East London and Essex, including my paternal grandparents who were born at West End Park, and my granddad went to school where he was taught by Cornelius Beale, who gave us Bubble. So that's a bit of a nice connection. And they knew some of the families around West Ham Park, which are like the Puddyfoots and the Barretts, Big Jim Barrett. So that's a nice little connection there as well. But my maternal grandfather, he was a QPR fan, and he used to try and get us to show interest in QPR, which, to be honest, to this day, I've still got a massive soft spot for them. But, he used to take us over where he was from, sort of Latimer Road, North Kensington, around there, like a stone's throw from Loftus Road. But I remember one summer he took us over to like a town fair. I'm sure it was Harlington or somewhere over that way. And Phil Parkes was like guest of honour, doing like a penalty shootout. So we went in this big tent and met this giant of a guy, dripping with sweat, got his signed photo and everything. And so kind of, as a goalkeeper, he was probably one of the first goalkeepers I literally looked up to as a small child. So when we actually signed him, it was like a dream come true, really, to sign this goalkeeper who was challenging for, or had played for England, who was challenging for England. Record signing, and he was, times when he looked unbeatable over the years. And then he was our goalkeeper in the 85-86 season. Just always thought it was, if it hadn't been for Shilton and Clements, he'd have been possibly England's number one.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, he came for a world record signing, which was terribly unusual for West Ham, spending all that money on a goalkeeper, and obviously, I wasn't around to see for that signing, obviously, to see him play much at all. But, it was a big deal, him signing for us, particularly, Man United and people like that were after him. I mean, when's the last time that we've competed with Man United on a player? In the modern day, it doesn't happen. But he was a mountain of a man, that's for sure. So we'll put Parkes in. Let's go left back.
Left back, it's got to be Julian. There's probably Frank Lampard being a club legend. Yeah, and I saw him in my early days. But Julian, for the way, I remember going to so many games in the sort of early 90s where we weren't playing very well, but every move seemed to stem from left back Julian. Yeah. So when you got people saying, he's a thug and dirty, this, that, and the other, it wasn't the of course he did create some horrible moments, but all I could picture was just this guy who had a magic left foot. He could dribble, he could tackle, Could shoot, obviously, penalties added to that. But he was a real playmaker. I mean, it's not often you see a fullback who was behind virtually every move that we created. It was pretty special, really. And he should have played for England. And I don't know if those stories about his haircut and whatever were true, but he was gifted enough, and he should have been, really.
Yeah, no, totally. I think he had the same sort of issue with Parksy as well. Obviously, he was born in a time when England's left backs, they had quite a few. You had Stuart Pearce, you had Lasso, and arguably he was better than both of them. But once they were in, weren't they? And as you said, any excuse to not put Julian in seemed the case. But an absolute guy who just epitomises West Ham. I mean, he's like literally, doesn't matter what generation you come from in terms of fans. Julian appears in their 11, just does, and that's fair. That's fair enough. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I think we interviewed, I think it was Mark Ward, and he basically did his 11, which was pretty much the '86 team, but he put Julian in because he said if we had Julian Dix, we'd have won the league. Not if, but how many points we'd have won the league that season. Right, okay, but go on.
Yeah, myself and my brother used to sponsor his socks for a few seasons, and I've still got the socks which I sometimes wear, which nice little memento to have from back then.
Yeah, because in the program, wasn't it? You had the shirt, the socks, all the sponsors, and that was. I was speaking to someone the other day. Because obviously, you used to sponsor. Remember, he used to sponsor the players and all that stuff. And he sponsored the player. I think he sponsored Tony Cotty and Mark Ward, his company. And he was like, it was a good deal because you got to meet them and stuff. Yeah, because he got to meet them because he sponsored them and stuff. But I just remember that. Yeah, and some were done by companies and some were done by families, weren't it? So but
we did Julian's and then we did Peter Butler's for a couple of seasons as well.
I love Butts. He's such a lovely bloke. Honestly, I've been fortunate enough to obviously interview Peter, and I love him. Honestly, he's he still texts me as well. It's really sweet. He just say, "We were like, oh, good result today, right? Yeah, it is, Pete. Yeah, it was. Yeah, thanks, Pete. He's like my best mate now. Right, okay. So we'll put Julian on the left. Let's go the other side then, Liam. Let's go right back for the Liam 11.
Two candidates. It was Tim Breacker.
Yeah.
Or Ray Stewart.
Yeah.
Now, Tim Breacker, I was tempted to put because he was all action. Billy Bond's first signing. Never stopped running. Overlapped quite a lot. And I've been mistaken for him at games as well. There was one game in particular where I think it was a final away game of the season. It was at Blackburn one year, and Tim was out injured. And there was a big group of lads in fancy dress, and one was absolutely convinced that I was Tim Breacker, so I just went along with him. What could you do?
That's brilliant.
But no, it's Ray Stewart.
Yeah.
A classic John Lyle signing. I think John Lyle, with his Scottish background, he had a good knowledge of the Scottish game.
Yeah.
He had some good contacts up there like Jim McLean at Dundee United. So he will have been well aware of this young player, this young right back. And he was just a sort of really steady, unflappable right back. He, of course, had the penalties, which I would edge him against Julian in terms of his record and method, etc. And he was also versatile as well. I've seen him play at centre-half, filled in at left-back a couple of times, and even central midfield he did a job. And Tonka nickname, and that he got it because he was strong, tough, always reliable. And
a good player. Lovely guy as well. And still comes across really well. Again, you're fortunate enough. He's coming on the channel eventually. He doesn't do Zoom. We don't do Zoom. I can't do a Scottish accent, but that's basically what he's.
Not cross the border
yet. So he, he was kind of. He phoned me up and said, "Look, I'm not ignoring you, Russ, but I hate Zoom. I hate looking at the camera like I'm not looking at the person." And says, "That's okay. We'll do it back." But he's such a lovely bloke, and literally we must have chatted for about an hour about football afterwards. You didn't have to do that. He could just send me a text, but all that era, those guys, they're brilliant guys. They're just,
Yeah.
every one of them's fantastic. But yeah, we'll put Tonka in. Good shot. Okay, let's go centre halves then, Liam. Who's your first centre half?
Alvin Martin.
Yeah, I
think it's similar to Ray Stewart in that he's adopted West Ham, if you like. He's someone who, like Ray Stewart, who is one of many players from that era who will, and even before that, who will talk about West Ham as if it's their club, even though they've got previous connections with, Alvin with Liverpool or whatever. But you genuinely feel that they're almost as much of a fan as we are in terms of results and caring for the club and the passion for the club. But Alvin, I always thought he was underrated in terms of he's like close control, very very neat footballing centre half, who could also do the stopper job superbly well as well. And a leader, bearing in mind that he had Bonzo alongside him for so long, and yet he became captain and did the job really well. The length of his career at the club. And another great guy as well when you meet, who will just talk all day about not just about his times and all his career, but he'll talk about the present day and ask you about you as much as he wants to talk about himself, which is always good.
No, you're right. There's a few players who are sort of these adopted Cockneys, aren't they? And as you said, Alvin particularly. He still lives around the area. He still lives very close to me. Apparently, his grandson goes to my daughter's school, and you see him at the school fair, helping out and stuff. But and he's not from around these parts. You know what I mean? A bit like Tonka, a bit like people like James Collins and people like that.
It's proper Romford now.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. It's like, it's lovely, and as you said, such a nice guy. Again, he's on the channel. So we'll get you on the channel soon. That's the thing. They're all bloody busy now because now football, they're all over the bloody place now. So it is what it is now. God, we had no football now. It's too much football now. I always forget the games, don't you? I look at my phone. I go, oh God, there's been 3 games today, and I was like, shit. Oh, that's okay. We're doing all right. We're doing okay. West Ham hasn't played just yet, but there's so much football. It's ridiculous at the moment. From having none, we've just got this sort of plethora of games just coming through. Right, okay, we'll put Alvin in. Who's Alvin going to partner in the centre half positions then, Liam?
That would be Slaven Bilic.
Oh, big Slav.
He was one of those signings when he came in and settled in straight away.
Yeah, good point.
There was a game at Tottenham, wasn't there, midweek? I think that was his debut. He just looks quality centre half. And he just oozed class to me. He just obviously had his international pedigree with Croatia. And what I liked about him, whether he played with alongside someone else or at times when he played with 3 at the back, he just looked like the leader again, controlling everything. And he had this sly little trick, I don't know if you remember it, but let's say he was getting chased down towards the corner flag and you thought, when he's under pressure here. And he used to do this thing where he managed to clip his own heels and go down. It looked like he'd been caught, and I just thought that was just so, let's call it experience, but I just thought it was just one of those things that you wouldn't like to see against you, but when he was doing it for us, I thought that was really cute. But I always remember Euro 96 was some of the games were at Sheffield at Hillsborough, and you went along specifically to watch Denmark v Croatia. You had Bilic, his centre-back partnership for Denmark against Slaven's Croatia. And it was the old red and white dynamite. There was just Danes everywhere, just took over Sheffield. And you couldn't help but be impressed. And I think we managed to get a ticket off a Danish guy. But then when we got into the ground, we were right next door, in amongst the Croatians. There was only a few hundred. Bearing in mind, I think they were still at war then in the Balkans, and there was these real tough guys with shaven heads, and you thought, well, you don't really want to mess around with these.
No.
But one of them had a shirt. I think it was Bilic's shirt. It was 28. I think his number was.
Yeah.
From one of the qualifiers, we got chatting, and I said, I want that shirt. I don't think any money in the world would have
taken it off him.
Taken it off him. No way. But it was just great to see. It was if you remember, it was a game when Suka, who eventually signed for us, chipped Schmeichel. And we sort of to celebrate with the Croatian fans, it was fantastic. Yeah,
brilliant. And they just look. I mean, they just look. That sort of Croatian, that kit just looked cool, didn't it? And he just it was so different, wasn't it? Because most kits are quite boring and plain and just one colour. It had all the sort of checkerboard and you're right. It was just it was just weird. But was his partner? Was he partner with Stimac in the middle? I think
Stimac at a time as well, but I think it started off with Reaper, and then Stimac joined us later on, I believe.
Yeah, but when he was at when he was with Croatia.
Oh, sorry, Croatia. Sorry, definitely, yeah. But that game as well. You're talking about the link, all the links with fans that have been on here that people have suggested and what have you. But that game, we met several other West Ham fans who've been friends ever since. So that was a nice little memory of the day out as well, because met some good people then.
I love those stories. That's the type of stories I love, Liam. Is like it's not, as I said, this is more about a community like project than it is about the football club, because it is about those stories. It's about talking to I don't know, Guillermo Holt. I always say it from Scandinavian Hammers because I just find him incredible. And he travelled to bloody Stenar Bucharest on his Todd, didn't know bugger all, and by the end he'd made loads of friends who he still talks to. And
German is actually one of my oldest West Ham friends, believe it or not.
He's crazy.
There was a game, it must have been a Sunday afternoon, we were playing Sunderland at home. We won 6-0 in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I didn't travel down. It was a Sunday lunchtime or whatever. But where we live, we actually bought a special aerial to get Tyne T's television, especially to pick up any of the games that were on Tyne T's television that weren't on Yorkshire TV. And so I'm watching it that particular day, and I saw this Norwegian flag in the west side, and I thought, "Oh, we've got fans in Norway." And then I used to get every programme, or picked up the programme for the next game or whatever. There's a little piece by German, and it said, looking for kind of pen pals or whatever. So I got in touch with German, and then we've been friends ever since.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, he's a crazy man.
Crazy man.
I'd love to go to his man cave. His man cave is honestly, because we interviewed him, and then he almost gave me like a guided tour for another 40 minutes. He's like, you see this? This is the original West Stand seat, like the old wooden ones. I was like, how much is that? Because most people have got I've got one, but he's obviously had to fly it over. Like, how much must that have cost him in postage or baggage? Mm-hmm. He's like, see this behind me? This is a sign from the bowling. It was like a Taylor Swift, not Taylor Swift, but, the brewery. Which when he was walking past, someone replaced, and I have that. So I think he's great. I love him.
I've seen his previous bar, but not in his new place. But I look forward to seeing that one day. Yeah,
incredible man. Right, okay. That's your back five. Let's go into midfield then, Liam. Who we got? Left midfield rather. Left midfield.
Yeah, there was one dilemma with changing it to accommodate someone. So I've juggled around a bit. But I think this side offers more balance than the one that it's debatable whether it creates more balance or not. But the left-hand side would be Liam Brady.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Several reasons. Believe it or not, back as a kid, there wasn't that many people called Liam for some reason. I think since then we've had, and if you say your name, sorry, how do you spell that? And Liam, or is it L-E? But Liam Brady, I used to look up to him because there wasn't that many Liams in the limelight over here. And I just thought he was a fantastic player. Magic left foot, playmaker, scored some spectacular goals, playmaker. So I always looked up to him and followed his career wherever he went. So when John Lyle signed him from Ascoli, it was like, oh yeah,
brilliant, yeah.
I love some of this, really good signing, albeit coming towards the end of his career, but he still did enough for us to prove valuable. I remember one game away at Derby, he scored an absolute screamer in the top corner, and I think we were right behind it. So That's a good memory. And who can forget his final game against Wolves? And what a way to sign off a career by scoring a spectacular goal right in the top corner. And referee blew a whistle. And that's it. Career over, game over. What a way to go! And we all ran on the pitch. And if there's the sends off and the sends off, and there's that's a tremendous way to finish your career. Yeah,
exactly. Good shout. Great shout. Yeah. As a prize, I mean, that when you start doing these things and interviewing people, there's certain names which you think would come up more often, and Liam's one of those that doesn't come up very often. I'll be honest, and I just think it's, but I think obviously there's so many people. I think he got a little bit lost when people think back at the time and look at players, and so it's always, and that's what I like about his channel, because like people keep like names of players come up and who might necessarily have been in other people's 11s, and that's what I enjoy about it, because then I'll go back and obviously I've looked at Liam Brady's goals and stuff at West Ham, but other players as well come up and go, oh, I never knew about or I'd heard about him but not in this context, and it's almost like it's quite cathartic. It's almost like homework for me, really, which is quite nice. Keeps you busy.
I think he got a couple of bad injuries as well. So that spoiled his career here. But even so, he still did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll put Liam Brady in. Let's go the other side. Let's go right midfield.
Right.
Liam.
Well, this is the balance where it hasn't quite worked out, but I've had to squeeze him in because he would have been on Liam Brady's side, and it's Alan Devonshire, who on occasion did play on the right-hand side, especially in the earlier days. But I think he's got enough ability, no question, to play anywhere across the midfield and make a contribution. It was just the sheer way he used to glide along the pitch, and players found it hard to tackle him just because he had this kind of a balance and skill, close control, and a drive and speed as well. He was a little whippet.
Yeah.
And obviously intelligent as well, the way he linked up with Trevor. Kind of telepathic, really, the little the 1-2s and stuff, that the give and goes that they used to create all the time. He could finish as well.
Yeah.
And I think the most impressive thing about him, apart from the way that he came from non-league, which has to be one of the all-time signings for us, for a few £1,000 from Southall or whatever. The most impressive thing for me was the way that he adapted his game and his running style when he got that really bad injury.
Yeah, agreed.
He came back and he realised he couldn't do what he used to do, but he was still a fantastic player when he adjusted his game. Look at the 85-86 team, and anyone who hadn't seen him play prior to that wouldn't know that he was a slightly different type of player.
No, I agree.
Prior to that, yeah.
No, I agree totally. And it's quite funny, when I interviewed TC and Macca, they both said exactly the same thing when we spoke about Dev. He told him this instruction. He was like, oh, yeah, I'll have 3 men on me. Just give me the ball and then I'll run it, tuck it in behind. And both of them said literally word for word. So that's obviously what he said to everyone. And he was like, cheeky bug, cocky fella. But it was true. And you're right. In that nowadays, players don't adapt their game after they got injured. Obviously, you look at someone like Michael Owen, after he got his hamstring problems, he didn't adapt himself, did he? So he would always get injured again.
No.
And that's really rare for someone to completely reinvent themselves, which obviously Dev did. Nowadays, obviously, people once they get injured, that tends to be it for them. Just get a reoccurrence, like Andy Carroll and people like that, get a reoccurrence of the same injury. And Dev definitely. And I've had and again, because everyone speaks so highly of him, I've gone back and obviously got time now. You've got time to watch old football, which is nice and things like that. And go back and seeing him pre and post injury, 2 different players really, but still incredible, absolutely incredible.
I'd love to know if he's had any actual offers from league teams to manage, because he's well respected at non-league.
Yeah,
and you do wonder whether he's had the offers, or is anyone taking a gamble on him or whatever, because he's got the knowledge, got the experience. And it'd be interesting to see if it ever happens now. Might be too late now, but
you never know. You never know. I mean, maybe I'll interview him one day.
Would be nice.
And we'll find out. Put it on the list if I interview him. Who knows? Right. Okay. So we'll put date pending. Right. Okay. We'll put Devin. Let's go midfield then. Liam, who have you got in midfield for you in central midfield?
Yeah, I think every midfield needs a kind of a holding man, or at least someone who can tackle, or be the link between the defence and the midfield. And that will be Billy Bonds, who big dilemma there was whether to play him at the back alongside Alvin. But I've gone for him in midfield because I just feel his all-action style, buccaneering spirit, fitness. 41 years old when he was still playing, and he was, by everyone's what everyone says, all the players, and that he was the fittest man at the training ground and probably on the pitch. And just a natural leader. Off the field, very shy, unassuming, quiet, gentleman. But on the pitch, just someone who I'm sure all the players would just naturally look up to and see his spirit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And a club leader, even though he came from Charlton, he's just a West Ham man from the longevity of his career.
Yeah.
And then, albeit probably later than it should have happened, but the night of the stand, I mean, that you could just feel the emotion, and it was hard not to get emotional that day, because you could just see
how much it meant.
It's hard for him because he's such a quiet, unassuming guy. He didn't want to be in the spotlight and that, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah, I think everyone was, and you're totally right. He's a very, very, very quiet man, and doesn't really show any. I mean, even when we went up in '92 when he was in charge, I remember seeing Pete. I remember seeing him on the, standing in the director's box, and he was happy, but there was no one. He wasn't like exuding emotion. But yeah. He almost broke down, to be honest, didn't he? In that one, at that Newcastle game, and it was very emotional, and it was nice because all the players were there as well, and Alvin did the presentation, so to speak, and stuff like that. So he's he is. For a lot of people, I mean, I'm more in I never saw Billy play, so for me, he was always as a manager, but not as a player. And so going back and listening to guys like yourselves talking about Billy in that respect, sort of keeps that side of his career going, so to speak. Because obviously we're recording all these for longevity. But we'll put Billy in.
I think he's one of those players as well. Like opposition fans, I mean, we're guilty of ourselves. I think if going back to Leeds, if you think of someone like David Batty.
Yeah,
he can't play. He just plays a little sideways pass, and
he's
a bit dirty or whatever. But Vinnie Jones, another one, players like that, or Joey Barton or whatever. But when you actually see them week in, week out, I mean, other fans must think that of like Billy Bonds or Julian, and not realise until you see them watching week in and week out the attributes they've got. The footballing skill, and Billy could do everything basically. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Totally agree. And I think, same with Julian. Outside of West Ham, I don't think people appreciate them as a player, because their reputation precedes them, doesn't it? That's what happens with football, doesn't it? Sometimes. Right, okay, put Billy in, and who's Billy going to partner in that midfield?
Big God. It will be God. So Trevor, clever Trevor. Again, as a schoolboy, first real idol, and just someone who you could look up to for being our best player at the time.
Yeah.
And then, whilst not being the biggest follower of the national team, seeing him play for England all the time. You put him in the spotlight, and right through his career, he's always been a perfect gentleman and someone to look up to. Proud that he was born in the same hospital as me, so something that I can brag about.
Yeah.
Billy brag about. He was born there too. No, just the sheer elegance, his ability, how he two-footed. I always remember, he used to talk about when he was growing up, and he used to practice with a tennis ball and work on his weaker foot, and that would be like one tip that everyone should follow.
Definitely.
If you want to make a want to make a go of it in the game is to practice on your weaker foot with a tennis ball or whatever, and then little tips like that. He scored some screamers, with his ability. Intelligent guy off the field, clever Trevor, and on the field as well. With his link-ups, not just with Alan Devonshire, but also that telepathic understanding with Kevin Keegan for England. Where they created goals for each other, and just off the field, one club man. West Ham's his club, and then although he's there as all the time in the director's box, he was on the board at one point, but I feel like he should be used like Man United have got Bobby Charlton as a club ambassador.
Yeah,
he's underused. The club could use him as more as like an official ambassador. Or actually on the board, because he's got he's been a director of his own business, etc. So I think his knowledge of the game, with his work at the FA, and he takes a lot of credit for what he did for the FA set up, the training.
St George's.
St George's, sorry, thanks. So all that knowledge. He's got so much to give, and I feel like it's not always used as what it should be, perhaps.
No. I agree. I agree totally. And he's one of those. You look when you go back, and everyone mentions you put Trevor in their team. They talk about his partnership with Keegan in England. Those are two in their prime were should have been England should have been unstoppable, really, shouldn't they? Really, those two in there. But you're right, and again, one of the things I didn't appreciate as much until I started going back and looking at old footage is the skill of people like Trev and the skill of Brady and Devonshire and all of that on those pitches. It's not like it's like now. He's like they're good players and they're playing on deep bowling greens. No, they were playing on bogs and they were still doing it and turning it on week in, week out. And I think that's not appreciated as much by the less experienced generation. We'll call them,
I think everyone thinks of the baseball ground as being probably one of the worst for being a bit of a bog. But there were so many other grounds, including our own, that was not too far off that. And but Trevor with his balance, he could go either way, and he always famously let the ball. He always shaped so that the ball was under control before he even had to touch it. If you know what I mean, he could wait for the ball to. He could move his body to make sure that he knew what was around him and he was away before other players would take one or two touches to even control it. But no, he had the brain to do all that before he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think Bobby Barnes, he was saying about, I think he said about Trevor, I think it's Bobby said it. He used to wear, despite the fact that he was on sort of crap grounds, he used to wear rubber soles, boots. It's like, that's mental. That's how much balance he had. He'd have to wear the, decent stuff with the rubber ones, which I used to remember used to wear down after about a week, didn't they? Those rubber ones, they were always really crap, those moldings. But yeah, no, absolutely mental in terms of what they did in that era on those pitches. Right, okay, let's go up front then, Liam. Who you got as your first striker?
Frank Mccaveney.
Oh, Mccaveney.
Again, John Lowe with his Scottish connections, his own personal background and scouting network or contacts up there. And I always remember in the seasons leading up to that, he always used to get linked with link players, players who could play in the hole. Paul Sturrock, another one from Scotland, there was one that I always remember that we tried to sign a few times. And so I was kind of aware that he was always after that type of player, like an Eric Gates, who played off the front men, who could play as a striker, but used to drop deeper. And that was his plan for Mccaveney from day one. And I remember going to his debut at St Andrews, and he was played more out on it was a slightly deeper role off Goddard up front and Cotty. And it was a pretty nondescript game. We lost 1-0, and you could see he was a quite tidy player, but no inclination that he was going to be anything special at that one game. But you couldn't really tell. And then, as often happens in football, whether it be someone grabbing a chance, with the debut through injury or whatever, it was famously with Paul Goddard getting the shoulder injury, where the next game, which I remember being at, was home to QPR, and we won with Mark Ward home debut alongside Frank home debut, and they were both outstanding. And it was like two fantastic signings. And there was this guy who was fearless, basically. He ran into the channels, work rate, he'd run all over across the back line, chasing down, never give up. But he also, I suppose he had a bit of a fiery Scot in him, but he had great ability. And then obviously the way he linked up with TC was legendary. And then it was one of those. It was always a toss-up between who would you most like to be as a teenager at the time. Do you want to be Frank Mccaveney with the Pastry Girls and blonde flowing locks or whatever? Which are not quite blonde. Or TC, the local hero, and it was always a toss-up between,
of course,
who would you like to be? I'm sure that was a discussion for many fans at the time. And then, similar to Liam Brady, what a way to end his career as well. I mean, again, he was blighted with injury issues, but then to go out, to come on a substitute against Nottingham Forest and Des Walker, and then to score a hat-trick, that's some way to go again.
And he's he's just, and again, another adopted Cockney, isn't he? Really, Macca he's brilliant guy, and another one I've been very fortunate to interview, and just such a nice bloke. Honestly, we had a right giggle. It was really, because when you interview players, I mean, I don't do this. This is not my full-time job, so it's very daunting for me, and. But he was just like chatting to your mate. He was like absolutely brilliant. And we must have had about 3 or 4 phone calls. And every time I tried to phone him beforehand, which is checking, if he was all right and stuff with it, he either was on the golf course or he was just coming back from the golf course. And he's just so funny, like such a funny, and literally, it was a right giggle. And what was funny was he spoke about him and Cotty, and it was that 85-86 team. They were so confident. They didn't necessarily. They had bets between the two of them, not who would score, but who would score the best goal. They both knew they were going to score, but who's going to score the better goal? And incredible. I mean, obviously that side still has something like 17 club records that season, which is incredible and quite worrying now, considering it's been so many years, but still incredible about the impact of that season. Right, Macca's in. Who's Macca going to partner?
Several candidates. Dave Cross is possible. First game I ever went to was 1978. First home game this season after we'd been relegated. Uncle Dave took myself and my brother Sean along, and that was it. I was hooked that first day. The closeness of the pitch, we were right down the front of the North Bank. Blazing, one of those summer days you don't seem to. You always remember as you don't think that you get them nowadays. But the green was greener. The freshly painted stanchions, the claret, the blue everywhere. As I say, the netting, you touched the netting behind the goal, and it was a 5-2 win against Notts County, and Dave Cross got a hat trick. So you had kind of a instant hero there, number 9. So he was a possible, but I don't think we've had much luck with strikers over the years. We've had so many that promised to be. Yeah, you're right. A legend. Yeah. I'm thinking of. I can remember John Hartson, where he was on fire. Yeah. And one day he must have hung around after the game, and he must have come out of a side entrance on the west side to go around to the car park, and there must have been about 30 kids all running after him. It was like the Pied Piper. Yeah. And I thought this is like. Superstar hero. I think he got a hat trick that day against Villa. So we've had, we've had players that you think, these are going to be our top striker for the next few seasons. We've had Canute, Demba Ba. I thought he was a terrific striker. He was great. And then they've always moved on for whether it be relegation or we couldn't turn down the money because we were in trouble or whatever. But going back to like David Cross And I remember at the similar sort of time, I had Van der Elst, who I think it was mainly family issues where the wives couldn't settle or whatever, wanted to move back to where they were from. So we never seemed to have much luck there. But when you've got Tony Cotty, who was my choice, even though he went away, he's been there over the, if you add up the two spells, he's probably one of the longest standing strikers, and he's up there with all the goal scoring records
as well.
And we talk about Mark Noble being Mr. West Ham, but I mean, we've got Tony, who was born just around the corner from the ground. I used to love his stories about his scrapbooks, where he detail every single goal, which it's just like the fan living out his dream, which
so true.
We all would have loved, and he got to do it, and score on his debut as well against a certain local rival.
He was made for him, wasn't he? I mean, he was proper. He's proper Roy of the Rovers stuff, isn't he? Really, and we've had, and I think West Ham fans really do warm themselves to a local boy, done good, and TC was, and again, Mr. Stats. He's, I just think he's such a nice bloke. And what he brought for the club was just incredible. And as you said, he 2 spells, left and came back. And when he came, obviously when he left and when he returned at Everton, didn't have a great reception, but things change, don't they? Things change, and I mean, I've seen John Terry being clapped at Tony Carr's testimonial when he came out in a West Ham shirt. So, stranger things have happened at sea, and he was just an incredible player. And you're right, we haven't had that partnership, let alone that single striker who's been that consistent for so many years at West Ham, which it's a shame, but. No, he's just he's just a fanboy, isn't he? Total fanboy, TC, and a lovely, and again, sort of that sort of the 85, 86 bunch. There's such a closeness within that team that they're still really great mates, and it shows that the impacts that season not only had on West Ham but had on their career as well, because they still talk. I mean, when I interview someone, one of them, they go, "Oh yeah, I was talking to Macca about you the other day," just because I wanted to check who you were, all that type of stuff. And it's lovely to hear that type of stuff, because you assume that football players are all mates with each other. Less so now, because everyone moves on after a couple of years. But there you assume, and it's so true. They all are great mates with each other, which is lovely. But that's completed the Liam 11 nicely. Liam, it's been great chatting. Been really nice chatting to you. I've really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time. I can see there's been some agonising decisions, some cold sweats at night. You're right. Don't bother me. Don't bother me. I'm making a decision whether to put Liam at left or right. It's like it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Liam, and obviously thank you to everyone for watching as well. Like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. And until next time, from me and Liam, take care, everybody. We'll see you again very, very soon. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Russ. Bye now. Thanks.